The plane shuddered violently as it descended through the stormy skies. Passengers clung to their seats, white-knuckled and terrified. Among them was David, a seasoned mountaineer returning from a trek in Nepal. The turbulence was like nothing he had ever experienced, and the gut-wrenching drop that followed confirmed his worst fears. The plane broke through the clouds, revealing a vast expanse of snowy mountains. The pilot's frantic voice came over the intercom, but his words were lost in the roar of the engines and the screams of the passengers. When David regained consciousness, he was surrounded by twisted metal and snow. Bodies lay scattered around him, their lifeless eyes staring blankly at the sky. He was one of the few survivors. Gathering his strength, he stumbled away from the wreckage, his breath coming in ragged gasps in the thin mountain air. David knew he had to find shelter and warmth. He salvaged what he could from the wreckage, a few blankets, some food, and a lighter. He found a cave nearby and set up a makeshift camp. As night fell, the temperature plummeted and the wind howled like a pack of wolves. On the fifth day, David began to notice strange things. His supplies were moved when he woke up, and he found footprints in the snow that weren't his own. At first he thought it was another survivor, but he never saw anyone. The sense of being watched grew stronger, and at night he heard whispers carried by the wind. One night, the whispers turned into voices, indistinct but persistent. They seemed to come from just outside the cave, beckoning him to step out into the cold. David resisted, knowing that venturing into the storm could mean death. But the voices grew louder, more insistent, until he could no longer ignore them. As David's food supply dwindled, he grew weaker. He began to suffer from hallucinations, seeing the faces of the dead and hearing their voices. One night he dreamt of a figure standing at the cave entrance, offering him food. When he reached out, the figure vanished, leaving him in darkness. Desperation set in, and David knew he had to find more food. He ventured further from the cave, searching for anything edible. On his return, he discovered that his meager rations had been stolen. Furious and starving, he realized there must be another survivor nearby, someone willing to let him die for their own survival. Determined to end the nightmare, David followed the ghosts back to the crash site. They showed him where their bodies lay, buried under the snow. Using his mountaineering skills, he dug through the snow and began to move the bodies, one by one, to a more dignified resting place. As he worked, the whispers of the dead became words of gratitude. The oppressive feeling of being watched lifted, replaced by a sense of calm. When he finally laid the last body to rest, the ghosts appeared one last time, their forms fading into the night. "Thank you," the woman whispered. "We can finally move on." One night as he lay near the fire, he was startled by a noise at the cave entrance. He saw a shadowy figure approaching. Grabbing a piece of wreckage as a weapon, he confronted the intruder. It was another survivor, a man named Eric, who had been hiding and scavenging from David's supplies. Eric confessed that he had been too afraid to reveal himself, fearing David might not share his rations. Driven by hunger and desperation, Eric had resorted to theft. David's anger turned to pity, and he agreed to share what little he had left. But as days passed, the tension between them grew, culminating in a brutal fight. In the struggle, David accidentally killed Eric, the cave walls echoing with his final scream. The murder haunted David. The ghosts of the dead passengers returned. But now they were joined by Eric's vengeful spirit. They tormented David, appearing in his dreams and whispering accusations. The cave became a nightmarish prison filled with shadows and eerie sounds. Determined to end his torment, David decided to leave the cave and search for rescue. He trudged through the snow, his body weak and his mind broken. As he climbed a ridge, he saw a rescue team in the distance. Summoning the last of his strength, he waved and shouted, collapsing into the snow as they approached. The rescue team found David's body in the snow, lifeless and frozen. They couldn't understand why he had ventured so far from the wreckage, or why his face seemed twisted in terror. The mountains remained silent, their secrets buried under layers of ice and snow. The whispers of the dead continued to echo through the snowy peaks, a haunting reminder of the lives lost and the survivor who never truly escaped.